With every single breath we take, we're all connected to this invisible chain. And today, we're going to trace its hidden path. We're talking about pollution, but not just as some buzzword. We're following it through our air, our water, and our world. So let's dive right in.
Just let that sink in for a second. We're all wired to spot the obvious dangers, right? The things we can see coming. But pollution, well, it's a completely different kind of threat. It works in the shadows, weaving itself into the very fabric of our lives, and a lot of the time, we don't even notice it until the damage is already done.
So yeah, this isn't just about one smokestack or one piece of litter. It's a massive, interconnected system. What gets pumped into the air can actually end up on your dinner plate. A contaminated river can have ripple effects for generations. To really get our heads around this, let's start with the most direct connection we have, the very air we breathe.
Okay, get this. You take about 20,000 breaths a day, every single day. That's 20,000 chances for your body to interact with the world. But what are we really inviting inside? It's time to peel back the layers and see what's really hiding in plain sight. Now take a look at this. This isn't just some boring list of chemicals. It's practically a menu of specific ways to cause damage. Carbon monoxide isn't just some vague bad thing. It's actively preventing your blood from carrying oxygen. Lead isn't just unhealthy. It's a direct assault on brain development. These are targeted poisons, and each one has a specific, nasty job to do inside our bodies.
I mean, we've all felt this, right? That headache you get after being stuck in traffic, or your eyes stinging on a really smoggy day. Well, those are the warning signs, the little taps on the shoulder. But the real danger, the serious danger, is what happens when those signs are ignored day after day. That's when the damage becomes a permanent part of us. We're talking chronic diseases, cancer, and just irreversible harm to the organs that keep us going.
And sometimes that devastating long-term impact doesn't creep up on you. Sometimes it happens all at once, in a single catastrophic moment. Back in 1984, in Bhopal, India, a horrifying gas leak showed the entire world the absolute worst-case scenario of air pollution. In just a few hours, around 3,000 people were dead. Just gone. Can you even imagine that? An entire town silenced in a single night by an invisible cloud. The scale of it is almost impossible to comprehend. It's such a stark reminder of the immediate, terrifying power of this stuff.
But for those who survived, the nightmare didn't end when the sun came up. For the 400,000 people who were exposed, the consequences became a life sentence. We're talking widespread blindness, a constant painful struggle for every breath, and permanent damage to their brains and nervous systems. Bhopal isn't just a history lesson. It's a living, breathing example of how air pollution can become an immediate, life-shattering disaster.
All right, so now let's follow that invisible chain as it moves from the air and into our water. Water pollution is so tricky because it's a silent traveler. It moves unseen, building up in places you'd never expect, and it can set off a deadly domino effect through entire ecosystems.
One of the most common problems is something called eutrophication. Now, it sounds really technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. We dump things like fertilizers into the water. This acts like junk food for algae, causing a massive bloom. But then, all that algae dies, and as it rots, it literally sucks all the oxygen out of the water. It effectively suffocates everything else living there. It's like the water itself can no longer breathe. And then there's this other terrifying process, biomagnification. It starts small, with a tiny, almost insignificant amount of a toxin, say a pesticide like DDT. It gets absorbed by plankton. Then a little fish comes along and eats thousands of those plankton. Then a bigger fish eats hundreds of those little fish. You see where this is going, right? By the time it climbs all the way up the food chain to our plate, that toxin isn't tiny anymore. It has become a concentrated, deadly poison. And believe me, this isn't just a theory. In Minamata Bay, Japan, a local factory pumped mercury into the water for decades. The people there, who had a ton of fish from the bay, had absolutely no idea they were slowly being poisoned day after day. The result was a horrifying new illness that became known as Minamata disease. That concentrated mercury launched a full-scale assault on the nervous system. People experienced numbness in their limbs, their vision and hearing failed, and in the worst cases it led to insanity, paralysis, and an incredibly painful death. It was a tragic, real-world lesson in the deadly power of biomagnification.
Okay, so let's follow the chain from the water as it seeps into the earth itself. This is where pollution leaves its most permanent mark. It's like a poisonous inheritance that can stick around for generations, creating dangers that last for centuries.
And the way it gets to us is frighteningly simple. We contaminate the soil with things like pesticides or radioactive waste. Plants soak up these toxins through their roots. And then either we eat those plants or the animals we eat consume those plants. Just like that, the poison in the ground becomes the poison on our plates.
And nothing illustrates this long-term legacy more clearly than the Chernobyl disaster. That initial explosion was just the beginning. The radioactive material that it spewed out settled into the soil like a toxic blanket, covering a huge area. And the scary part? It's not going anywhere. Decades later, it's still there. Some of these materials will stay dangerously radioactive for hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. It's a permanent scar on our planet.
So here's something really important to understand about this kind of pollution. It has two different ways of attacking us. The first is what's called somatic damage. That's the direct hit, the harm to an exposed person's body, like causing cancer or organ failure. But the second way, genetic damage, is so much more sinister. It's an attack on our very blueprint, on our DNA. This creates hidden flaws that can be passed down through generations, a silent time bomb just waiting to go off in our children or our grandchildren.
So, we've traced this chain through what we breathe, what we drink, and what we eat. But what about a pollutant we can't see or touch, but can only hear? Yeah, I'm talking about noise pollution. It's one of the most widespread yet most ignored links in this whole invisible chain of harm.
As you can see right here, there's a clear point where sound stops being just sound and starts becoming a physical weapon. Once you get up to around 130 decibels, it's not just loud. It can literally make you sick, causing things like nausea and dizziness. And at the really extreme end, the damage is immediate and it's permanent.
But the number I really want you to lock in from this slide is 100 decibels. This isn't about some sudden massive explosion. This is the level where continuous, ongoing exposure starts to cause permanent, irreversible hearing loss. Think about that the next time you're at a loud concert, working with power tools, or even just have your headphones cranked up all the way.
And the damage goes way, way beyond just our ears. Noise pollution acts as a constant low-level stressor on our bodies. It messes with our sleep, jacks up our stress hormones, and can lead to high blood pressure. It also has a huge impact on the environment, stressing animals out so much that it messes with their migration and breeding. It can even cause actual physical cracks in buildings. It truly is a pollutant that attacks our health, our environment, and even our cities.
And so, the chain is complete. A toxin in the air settles in the soil. Fertilizer on a field washes into a river. A poison in the water climbs the food chain right onto our plates. Even the lack of silence becomes its own kind of pollution. It's all one giant, interconnected system. It's a mirror, really, just reflecting our own actions right back at us.
Which brings us to the final, and I think the most important question of all. If pollution really is this invisible chain of cause and effect, connecting absolutely everything, then what's our role? Where, in this long, complicated chain, can each of us be the one to finally break it? That's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for joining this explainer.